Hello and welcome to Audible River. I'm Alan Rice, and I am very happy to have with me Icasiana Hilda Barrs, medicine woman, healer, and spiritual guide, who is sharing her lifetime of experience and wisdom to help others in their journey to find their own capacity for self-healing and self-mastery. Hello, Icasiana. It's very good to see you today.
Thank you, Alan. I'm so happy to be here with you this morning.
Yes. You know, I want to start off by you have a beautiful website, by the way. And if I go to behindbars.com, the very first thing I see is your disease is a message from the universe. I would love to hear more about that. What can you tell me?
So there's everything is energy and frequency and sound in our bodies and in the universe as a whole. And when I got the message of cancer in 2014, so it's been 10 years now,
Wow.
I went into a very deep introspection of what this was here for because I was just not the cancer type.
Mm-hmm.
There was a sense of, I was not distressed. I wasn't, seemingly angry or anything that would cause this to happen. So I went through a very deep cathartic state of inquiry. And what I found is that our soul comes and incarnates in a physical body form. And when we are not on our path or really exploring our soul's purpose, then the messenger comes, and it could be disease, it could be an accident, it could be anything in your life that disrupts your life to wake you up to a greater sense of knowing and being.
I can relate to that. I can see that as okay. I want to break this down and get into it a little bit deeper, how this works and how it looks and maybe in different people's lives. I mean, this is something important, I think, to understand. I have a bunch of things that come to mind at once. I can understand that if we come into this world with an essential nature that is unique to us, and somehow we are encountering impediments and we've made choices that go against our nature for whatever reason. It could be trying to adapt to the world we're in, whatever. That we're creating a conflict, and you spoke of
Yeah.
energy, and
Hmm.
so something energetic begins to go haywire, and that can create disease, or it can create things in our life that can have us encounter incidents, health issues that cause us to look again at what our path is. Why are we doing what are we doing? That kind of thing. Now, I understand that, but I think the question that I have here is how does a person how do you know it's a message and not just I shouldn't drink so many Coca-Colas?
That's a good one. Um, there's always that choice in life of how we live our lifestyle and so forth. So I would give that a percentage, a small percentage.
Yeah.
I've known people that smoked, for 90 up till 93 years old, and they lived a long, pretty healthy life. So
Uh-huh.
I think lifestyle does have some bearing on it, but more so, it's almost this sense of disconnection to why we're here. Like you said, we all are unique, and we all have a specific purpose here on this planet. We
Hmm.
come here to learn. We come here to expand. We come here to a greater sense of consciousness. So for me, I can only speak for myself and for all those that I've worked with. Every single time, especially with cancer, there has been a specific event or trauma or a certain pattern of thinking, a victim thinking, um, resentment,
Hmm.
those types of things that have created a disease, a dis-ease in their body. So just from the 25 years of working with people in this realm,
Hmm.
I have I have literally been able to determine the cause or the pattern that was actually created in the body that brought them to this messenger.
So I'm very curious, without giving away if it's trade secrets or whatever. So how do you get to that? I mean, what is that process when you work with somebody? What can you tell us about that?
So I take the first call I do is 2 hours long, and
Hmm.
it's actually a gift. I because I feel so strongly, and sometimes that 2 hour call is enough for someone to sit with somebody and be heard and acknowledged
Hmm.
and really respected for their life and why they're here. And I write copious notes of patterns. I hear things like, they'll say something about their father or their mother or their husband or their wife or something where I start to see, oh, this is, a pattern of resentment.
Mm-hmm.
For me, breast cancer was around resentment. And so all of a sudden I'll have this almost like this energetic match where I can actually hear it and tone the frequency of cancer. And so, excuse me, I have a cold, so I'm just gonna blow my nose here. So, so in that call, I determine and see, but I'm also watching the auric field.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's some blocks or shadows or certain things, and so I'll be able to probe a little bit more into their life. And most, I would say all people that I've worked with over the 25 years, I've been able to uh, thread that pattern and kind of find out where it actually started. And there's typically some level of trauma or um, the word would be trauma is probably the best. Grief and trauma are usually the typical culprits, if you will,
Yeah,
starting a pattern.
and trauma could be, you know, something grievous that happened, something that they felt it damaged them personally, and it could be a lot of different things, I imagine. But I mean, speaking for myself, I mean, when I think of trauma, I think of relationships. I think of other people. I mean, those are the kinds of traumas that I feel are the most damaging to me, or when you know, people that I trust hurt me in a way, like especially when you go back to as a child and coming forward and you like building trust, and then something happens and kind of destroys your faith in what you thought was real. So is
It's
this the
like
kind of thing that? Okay, go ahead.
and it could be very grievous, and it also can be just this pattern of not feeling. Let's just say your parents, you're looking in the mirror and your parent walks by and says, "Why are you looking at yourself? Why are you vain? Why, certain things?" And you
Oh,
start to start having this sense of like, "Oh, I may be that," because you're being told that,
right.
and you start to compensate for that. So you may not look in the mirror, or you may hide and look in the mirror. And something as simple as that could start a thread of inauthenticity, because you're no longer being able to do the things that you may be prompted to do or feel okay about doing. And so it could be very slight. Um, my personal trauma came from, uh, well, several things, but the major trauma was my father died trying to save me and there were three sisters
Oh
in
my
a river
goodness.
and when I was 15 years old. And that day that he died, we were actually going to go look for a farm. And my family, we had 13, there were 13 kids in our family. And so it was a very large family. And we were going to look for a farm. And I went to church that morning there were 8 of us on that journey that day. So we all went to church first, and I prayed fervently, God, please do something, anything, so I do not have to go live on a farm.
Oh dear.
So, when we were traveling to the farm, I saw a sign for a river, and I said, Dad, there's the Cimarron River. And we were living at the time in Oklahoma. And I said, could we stop at the river? And everybody was joyous to try to, delay this journey to the farm.
Hmm.
And so we stopped. And during that stop, I took my sisters in the river with me, and it was very calm and placid river. And then there was a drop, and it dropped like 13 to 15 feet, and we went into a swirl. And so in that tragedy, my father actually drowned, saving us. My sisters were okay. So that
Oh,
guilt,
oh my goodness. That's, I can't imagine what you might have felt.
right? The shame and guilt that literally I took it on myself,
Yeah.
Alan, in that moment, that I caused that.
Oh, well,
Because a 15-year-old, they think everything's about them, right?
well, I can easily see that. I mean, what you just told me, and how you had, you had set up the intention of like, please do anything, and
Yeah.
then of course, and oh my goodness, so wow. So how long did you live with that before you realized that it was eating away at you?
Pretty much until yesterday.
It can hang on a while. Yes, sir.
It did. Actually, I written a book around this whole piece,
Okay.
because what it did is it created a disconnection to my authentic self and my self-love.
Uh huh.
And so the breasts are all about love and nurturance, and so it really created this um, pattern in me,
Hmm.
and that was telling me in some way that, you have to be uber responsible. You have to be this, you have to be this way, that way, so nothing like that happens. So my life became very controlling. And what happens is it sets a pattern in your being where you can't even recognize your true self anymore.
Right.
So basically, I am kidding a little bit, but it was through a grandmother plant medicine ceremony, which I participated in, where I started seeing about 20 years ago,
Oh.
or the effect of how that choice that I made as a 15-year-old girl affected my entire life up until that point. So I'm 63 now, so that would have been about 43 years old.
Wow. A long time. Okay. Several things. Okay, you mentioned the plant medicine. I'm really curious about that. That experience, whatever it was, whatever you did, it opened up your awareness to see things in a different manner, I guess, right? To see a to give you a different overview of yourself, and you had this new awareness of this pattern in you. There's that, but there's also things that I'm hearing from what you're talking about in the work that you do, that I would say that you obviously have your own perceptions and skills and talents that you apparently were born with. I'm just
Mhm.
throwing it out there. You can
Yes.
confirm that. And so I'm curious about how those two things, how you experience this ability that you have to see these patterns. When did you know this? How did you experience it through your life? And then this ceremony that you had, was that like a turning point in your life, or how would you describe it? Just take it from there, whatever you want to say.
So when I was a little girl, I was highly aware of energy. And
Okay.
and we didn't call it energy, but there were little beings. I would be in the woods a lot. I would
Uh-huh.
be playing in nature. We were huge family, so we always had playmates, with us. And so
Uh-huh.
my sister and I would be out in the woods, and I could I could see the vibration, and I could see um, um, almost it looked like you know how if there's smoke, there's these little flowing vibrations. I could see things like that.
Uh-huh.
I would literally see spirits, little
Uh-huh.
sprites and beings and fairies. And so I was very aware of it. And I was raised Catholic. And so I knew not to speak of it because I
Oh.
didn't want to have an exorcism. I thought, I thought I was gonna be in trouble. So I was quiet about my gift
Uh-huh.
and knowing even in there was something that was called it was a Catholic ceremony where people would talk in tongues and I would have experiences where I would be talking in tongues and I thought, oh, this is strange, but I wasn't with my family. Was with it was called charismatic Catholic,
Uh-huh.
uh, my cousins, and then when the accident happened at 15, my gifts kind of shut down. I basically said, Mother Nature cannot be trusted. I'm going to go into, you know, in inside. I'm going to start working. I started working at 15 years old. I was literally under fluorescent lighting. I was continuously not wanting to be outside and I
Mm-hmm.
wanting to be in nature because it actually frightened me.
I
You know,
see.
this deep sense of I was not safe anymore. And then so through that process and then when I went through, you know, a relationship with my husband, we met in 1986 and I started feeling safer in that relationship. So I had bumpy relationships from 15 to, you know, 29. It
Uh-huh.
was it was a roller coaster, you know, because of that. Anytime there's that type of trauma and the decisions that are made in your mind, you typically get further and further away from your true self,
Right.
your due north. And so when he got sick with ALS, it started bringing me back to this healing realm, this realm of spirit, this realm of energy. And so I was searching, you know, for someone to help him with his disease.
Mm-hmm.
Now he was a control freak. He was a military officer. He was a commander of Air Force bases in Spain. And what type of disease would a control freak get? But Lou Gehrig's disease or something like that, where your mind is still perfectly intact, but your physical body becomes, you know, degrading. And so it was really, really horrible to watch him because he was an extreme athlete.
Mm-hmm.
But what I noticed in that relationship was if he could just let go, you know, let go of this control of having to be able to, you know, he would write out everything perfectly. He would check things off when he did them. His lists were amazing. And that's when I started getting back to that thought of, you know, our thoughts create our reality and our patterns actually create, you know, the life that or the physical being and life that we're in.
Our thoughts create our reality. That's just a few words you threw out there, but that's like such a powerful thing to know.
It's because you know, it's like thoughts are very magnetic.
Uh-huh.
And since everything is energy, and if we're thinking it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I feel like, you know, a lot of this programming, you know, that's happening right now, and it has been happening all along, is really important to be aware of. To be so if you know thyself, if you really truly know yourself, and you think not only positive thoughts, because I mean, we have negative thoughts.
Right.
We're human. But if we are in alignment with our true self and our soul self,
Yeah.
then our thoughts start to align to that. But if we keep thinking, oh my God, that's why cancer, when cancer came, and I call it, my dance with cancer,
Okay.
I knew and I kept thinking, I am not going to die from this. I am literally going to find the path inward so that I can open up this treasure box of why cancer came. It was not like, and I went from, 150 pounds to 118 pounds. I mean,
Hmm.
I looked like I was going to die,
Wow.
but I kept knowing that there was some reason why cancer came to visit. And that's what I wanted to find out. Those were my thoughts. It's
Wow.
like,
Yeah, that's a little exciting to me because it sounded like that you had a kind of decided certainty. It was like in that, and then, but by doing that, by living in that, that became your reality. Is that fair to say?
that's that's exactly right. And so the vision, because we are visionaries, each and every one of us.
Uh
And
huh.
if we have a vision, I saw my grandchildren. I literally put that out into the future, and I said, I'm going to see my children graduate from high school. I'm going to see them get married. I am going to see that. And I
Wow.
literally held that anchor point for myself. And then I did all the stuff that I needed to do to heal myself,
Right.
because it's all the inside work. It's the inside job.
It's all inside. Yeah. I mean, the real work of who we are. I mean, and yeah, this is really interesting. I love what you're doing because the healing is not about. I mean, in your work, I'm just saying what I'm picking up. I mean, it isn't about like treating the symptoms or wrapping the body a certain way or doing these things, which could be helpful. All these things could be very helpful. But what I think, and personally, this is something that's interested me my whole life. In growing up and similar to what you described, talking about your inner life felt like something that you just couldn't do, or people looked at you like you're so weird.
Yes.
And but the thing is that if with a couple of questions or just a little bit of time, I learned that everyone has an inner life. Everyone has their own thoughts, but I think that so many of us are trying very hard to fit into the world, to do what we need to do to build on the promises that we're forced to make. That's kind of
Yeah.
the.
Yes, and that's why I feel like as a grandmother now, to hold the wisdom of what we know as elders
Yeah.
to share with the younger ones, because it is difficult. Life can be very, very difficult because being authentic and different didn't feel safe,
Hmm.
especially if you're raised in a, you know, type of environment where there's certain, like a Catholicism or, maybe Mormonism or whatever
Yeah.
ism there is. So I feel that the more we can give permission for people to be who they truly are and really encourage that. I was thinking about this interview this morning, and I was thinking, like, what is it that starts this programming? And you know we smile at our kids and we're like, oh my God, they're smiling, oh they're this, oh they're that.
Uh huh.
And we start to program so early, and so to just catch ourselves to say, allow that child to be a freer and expressive in their own way without having to categorize it or name it. When I had my third child, I remember making a commitment to not try to teach him.
Okay.
Like, oh, that's the sky is blue. Oh, that's this is that, and so that he actually could live in a greater, awareness of his own environment, his own being. And it really was a great choice, I think, because I mean, he grew up like like in such a beautiful way. And my other two children are really, really connected to spirit and connected to, their inner life as
Hmm.
well. So I
Hmm.
think I think just parenting, conscious parenting, where you're really awake and really realizing how much your word means to that child and how they're going to respond and react to that is really important for
Oh,
growth.
oh my goodness, yes, because that's the beginning of our lives is the adults that are taking care of us, and we have to trust them. We have to trust them with
Yeah.
everything. I mean, it's an amazing thing the way that we're born. We're completely helpless. I mean,
Yeah.
we depend entirely on other people to for our survival, and
Can you imagine? My mother had 13 children
oh my
too.
goodness,
And so with that, you start to think, how could, and I had three, and I thought, wow, that's so much. And I used to think back as like, no wonder we didn't have, that one-on-one.
hmm,
No wonder we didn't feel special or, important,
hmm,
because there was no time for that. So that's, it gave me a lot of peace later in life once I figured that out, where they did the very best they could. That was their path and that was my path.
yeah,
So everything is perfect. And I know that's one of the spiritual practices is like, wow, if we could get to that, just so starting with that,
hmm,
everything is perfect and we're not victimized by anything, that this is something as a messenger from the universe for you.
yeah. I've been working on that one for my whole life, I think. It's like, the that kind of understanding. And I recently had a conversation with a Buddhist monk who is a geshe. It's like a PhD in Tibetan Buddhism. And the takeaway I have, which relates to what you were just saying, is that the what we need to do in training our minds and how to approach reality is, like if we get a bump on the head, it's like, my reaction is to get angry. It's like, oh my, what was that doing? Oh my God. And I stomp around. It's like, oh my God, my head hurts. But the monk was saying, like, that's a choice. That's a training. That's a way of doing it. What if you just said, I need to put some ice on that? And that's all it was to it, and you didn't have the reaction, and you just go through accepting that, well, that just happened and now I do this. That these are ways that we can change how we approach the world. But the other thing is that I learned all these things from the people I was with. I learned these reactions from the world I was in, but I always knew deep inside there was a different way. But finding that different way, that's
Yes.
been the trouble. And so you're helping people find that different way.
Yes. It's like people that have gone through deep trauma, whether it be, accidents or disease or sexual abuse, all those things, those are the teachers.
Hmm.
Those are our teachings. And when we can master those teachings and realize how perfect they are and were for us to be here at this point in time now, then my understanding is we now have a responsibility
Oh.
for our fellow beings to assist. And it's such a remarkable thing because like attracts like. And what happened was when I had cancer and I didn't know I had cancer, the vibration of cancer was in my field.
Hmm.
All these people started coming to me with cancer. And I
Oh.
thought, wow, that's interesting. There's so many people. And I was working with grandmother plant medicine, which is ayahuasca.
Uh-huh.
And I served that medicine for 13 years. I had a practice where I helped people. So they kept coming, and what had happened was I was in a deep meditation. This is prior to the ayahuasca, and I could spirit in this meditation would say, we're gonna vibrate certain frequencies. You're going to tone it, the frequency, and then when it matches whatever frequency of the malady in the person's body, then it's going to go through your right ear and then come out your left ear, and there's going to be a coherence, a
Oh.
resonance.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, okay. So I started practicing it, and I would scan the person's body. I would hear through the right ear the frequency, and then I would tone it. And then all of a sudden, the parts of my body would start having some sort of almost like a frequency
Yeah.
match, like a match.
Uh-huh.
And I was working with a woman. So this was during an ayahuasca journey. I was working with a woman, and when I got to her breasts, the frequency, and it started vibrating in my breasts, and I said to myself, either she has breast cancer or I have breast cancer. And that's how I diagnosed. And then, and of course, I went to get mammograms, and then I had a biopsy, and it was verified. So I realized, wow, we are literal mirrors for one another, as human beings. So
Amazing.
whatever you're sending the frequencies out of your energetic field, and I'm picking it up,
Mm-hmm.
and vice versa. And that's when I realized that all is one and one is all. This was the saying that I kept getting. This was the teaching I was getting. And I thought, oh, okay, so if I heal myself, then I'm going to help heal others with the intention of that purpose. So I literally, when I worked with my own cancer, I knew as I was healing, I was thinking about all the other women or men, anyone with cancer, that frequency and vibration, if I heal it within me, will be sent out into the all is one, one is all field.
My goodness. When you explain it like that, that part of it seems essential to being in that awareness, that healing awareness, that it's not just you. It's the soup of all of us that you're
Right.
that you're generating in.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I'm like, what? Okay. So,
No, it's so fascinating to me because how if you drop a pebble into a still pond, and it just ripples.
mhm,
And I kept envisioning that during my cancer walk of 18 months.
mhm.
And I met so many people with cancer, and I thought, wow, this is such an opportunity for each and every one of us to heal ourselves, and we heal others.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I just got a moment of clarity about that, and that is that it seems like the attitude of healing is more effective when it's not self-centered. Is that? I mean, that's something. So I can focus on healing myself, and I can just like go into it and say like, okay, all right, I got this pain in my stomach. I'm just going to stop it. I'm going to fix that, and maybe that'll work. But this power that you're talking about is like I really want to understand it. It's connecting with a healing that is all pervasive. It's
Yes.
like let's just call it the spirit of healing. I don't know. I'm just something I'm trying to
Well,
grasp right now.
we can only heal ourselves.
Okay.
Yes, we have outside help if we need help,
Hmm.
but we literally, when you can align your being to that frequency of healing, and you intentionally know that your healing will affect the all. So as the one,
Okay.
you are literally, and so it's very important to be a bit self-centered about it, because
Okay.
this is your life, and this is your health and your wellness. So when you can actually know that your being and the importance of your health and wellness will affect all those in the field. So
Hmm.
that frequency, let's just say you're vibrating at a very dense, cancer has a frequency. When I was resonating. It's like it's very jagged. It's very like it feels like something you don't want in your body.
Right.
So let's just say you are highly aware that you have cancer or any other disease, and you can match that frequency and then raise that frequency. So that means you're healing your physical being from a dense to a higher frequency, and you're literally doing it with intention and with the knowing that you are part of the all. You are part of the primordial soup,
Uh-huh.
if you will. And so whatever that frequency is that you can raise, you're going to affect, you're going to match. So there's that resonance.
Yeah.
Remember that we talked about
Right.
coherence and resonance.
Yeah.
And then if you can up level that,
Hmm.
then you're literally leaving that frequency to come to this frequency. And it'll affect all beings.
All
All,
beings. I want to share quickly, though, that in recent years, I've grown in the awareness of how my thoughts and feelings that I maybe even try to keep to myself and so that no one else even knows what I'm thinking or feeling because I don't want to bother anyone with it. I because I'm constantly learning and growing, I became acutely aware, painfully aware actually, that I'm affecting other people without I mean, I'm trying not to, but it's affecting everyone around me because I'm
absolutely.
holding something in, I'm thinking something I'm frustrated. And so whatever it is, people are, people close to me are experiencing it.
That's
And
right.
right, I become aware of this and it bothered me a lot because I wasn't sure when I first realized this what to do about it.
I used to test that, Alan, with ceremony and sacred plant medicine. I would send a thought. I
Uh-huh.
call it a thought form.
Okay.
I think they call them egregores.
Yeah.
Egregore is the word. A thought form into the field,
Yeah.
and I would just watch, and I'd keep feeding it, like, ooh, keep thinking that thought, and then all of a sudden, people would say, "This is what I'm getting," and it was the same thing. And I thought, "Whoa, this is such a powerful magnetism that actually happens." And
Yeah.
so that if you're not in alignment with your true self
Hmm.
and you start having these thoughts, you're going to attract that to you as your I always call it, the messenger.
Oh
they're
yeah.
they're mirror messenger. They're here to show you. And so once we can come to a place of divine joy and happiness that we are here for an incredible purpose, we're the only one here for that purpose. You are unique. We may not be special in that sense, but we're absolutely unique. No one else is doing you. I love that saying. How does it go? It's like be yourself because everyone else is taken or something like
Yeah, no,
that.
that's
So
good. Right.
so and you can't hide your thoughts.
No, not
So
really.
and what I say is think them and then observe it. What is that? Why is that thought coming in?
Hmm.
The inner inquiry is the greatest gift. And I'm not talking about being so self-conscious but I'm talking about being self-aware,
Okay.
self-realize that you're going to affect the field. You're
Hmm.
going to, no matter what. And you've been in places where you've walked in and you've been joyful, and all of a sudden you see everybody else just kind of like, whoa.
Hmm.
Or
Hmm.
you've been like really feeling crappy and come in and then everything
Yeah.
kind of.
Right. Yes.
So
Yes.
this is the responsibility, the self responsibility, and the self care to make sure we know thyself, that we know and become truly who we are, who we were meant to be. Clearing. I always say clear the programming first. That's the
Hmm.
first part. Is like clearing all those lies that were either projected upon us, whether it be school, parents, government, whatever.
Uh-huh.
Get clear in your own sovereign self. then you're
Hmm.
going to vibrate, because it's almost like a lot of errant radio waves coming through you,
Right,
and you're going to be affected by it, right?
right,
Because it's
right.
happening all the time. So if you become very clear and sovereign, you can radiate at a frequency much higher, and then you're no longer in that world of muck and density. You're in a higher plane of, this is my world.
That is like exactly that sounds like the formula that I've heard in different ways, told in, with different terminology of how we have whatever it is, an energetic imposition that
Yeah.
we're entangled with, right?
Mhm.
And that the challenge for all of us is to become aware of our own true self
Yeah.
and to allow that to engage with everything around us. But it's okay. I think though that these are for okay, for people who have been through it. It's kind of easy to talk about in a way.
Yeah.
But for someone who is, having troubles, not feeling well, being depressed, can't get rid of these negative thoughts, I mean, how would you, I mean, because I know that there's like steps. Sometimes there's difficulties. Sometimes there's things like, I mean, it's like, there can be like like extreme experiences actually to break through. You want
Mhm.
to talk about that in general, maybe with some of the people you've worked with, what people might have experienced in becoming free? What's that experience like?
So I've worked with sacred plant medicines because they actually have the possibility of breakthroughs that
Oh,
are, where you can literally see it, see your part in all of it, rather than being a victim to it.
okay.
And so I these plant medicines came to me through various ways of initiation. And I work right now with what people call psilocybin, but
Hmm.
it's in our world, it's Santos Niños, which
Mm,
is the holy children or the
okay.
sacred children. And I love that because after the ayahuasca experience of the grandmother, these master teachers, she was, I mean, hard hitting, incredible breakthroughs that were happening. For 13 years, I walked with that medicine and saw the most incredible shifts and changes, healings of magnitude of, overnight things
Wow.
happen.
Wow.
Because when we wake up to the truth, we are no longer fettered with all that brought us down to the lower frequency. So
Hmm.
you reach that higher frequency, whether it be this incredible knowing that we are all one, and that we do matter, and that everything that we've gone through has been a teaching rather than a punishment.
Right.
So things that would happen. So with the Santos Niños, I am working with people not only in a hero's journey, which is, a very big step in their life, and it's a soul remembrance
Hmm.
of who they
Yeah.
are. But it's also with microdosing, so
Hmm.
so with people with depression or people with trauma that has not been either recognized. Many times people have, their minds have been able to um, shelter themselves, and so they don't know what's wrong, what
Right.
happened.
Right.
So
Right.
they do remembrance, and sometimes with ayahuasca or something, peyote or wachuma, sometimes those openings are just too fast and too great. How do I deal with it now that I know,
Right. Right. Right.
what happened to me? And so what I love now is just taking a very slower approach, getting someone to a place where they're just opening to their self realization. They're opening to maybe their past trauma patterns and so forth. So I sit with them,
Hmm.
uh, take that first 2 hours, and then we talk about intentions. I I start with mantras or something that they can start repeating for themselves.
Hmm.
I've had situations where people have had inoperable cancer, and even without any medicine, what I call sacred plant medicine, just mantras
Hmm.
where they start training their brain and telling themselves, I am well, I am, perfectly healthy, or whatever it may be,
Hmm.
whatever that mantra is. And they've written it out on their mirrors, in their car, in their kitchen, wherever it is. And they just keep repeating it to themselves. It's, it's like telling the mind, it's almost like a Jedi mind. These are not the droids.
I know. That's right.
I,
So it's a retraining of the mind. The plant medicine. I'm interested in the fact that obviously you've had mentoring. It sounds like you've had some very specific kind of training to work with these medicines, and an awareness and respect for what they are and the spirit that they bring. But I also know that there's science I'm aware of, that supports what you're talking about. That certain, like psilocybin, for instance, or these psychoactive, especially the natural occurring ones, that they actually increase neuroplasticity. That in these experiences that you're actually growing new brain stuff.
yes.
So it's like exponentially more important to have those experiences safe and guided. And I think that that's what, I hear a lot of people who try this and say, "Oh my God, that was just crazy." But, but it feels like that, well, you're kind of playing with something really powerful, and that it needs to be a much safer sort of, and it sounds like that's what you're offering.
And it's, to me, it's the sacredness of it,
Okay.
that because we are holy beings. We
Okay.
are literally made, cut from the same cloth. We are all sacred beings. And it's more of a remembering and waking up of the soul's remembrance of why we are here.
Hmm.
And when we can get to that place in a slower uh, way where we start to see the opening of our sacredness, and we start to see the opening of our uniqueness, then we're no longer having to prove anything.
Hmm.
There's nothing that we have to do to be worthy to receive it. And so my teachings, if you will, and I don't call myself a teacher really. I just share what I have been gifted,
Hmm.
and the medicine is one of the key ingredients to open up the doorway. And if it's done in a way of ceremony and prayer and intention,
Hmm.
it's fast. I mean, it is so remarkable to me what I have seen with people just waking up to the truth of their being, and that all their past becomes um, the teaching rather than the pain and suffering. If
Right.
that makes sense. It's like, wow, I was literally gifted all of that. It's just a switch. It's like turn that switch, flip it is what I say,
Uh-huh.
into that being the gift. Those were the gifts. And I know it's hard. Sometimes people, I tread carefully when I know there's people that are in very victim mode, because
Right.
it happens to me, it keeps happening to me. This happened, that happened, and I'm like, who's the central character here?
Right.
That's you. It's happening for you, not to you. And people say, I have to do this, I have to that. And then what if we just said, I get to do that? I get to do that. So
Right.
just have to get to. It's happening to me, it's happening for me. There's certain just phrases that start to feed the soul and say, that feels aligned, that feels resonant to me. And so the sacred plant medicine, we don't need the sacred plant medicine in the sense that to find self-realization.
Hmm.
It is an incredible, beautiful tool and vehicle. And I love the ones that are from nature, because these have very specific spirits.
Okay.
Like, the grandmother medicine is very different than the Santos Niños medicine. It's very different. And just seeing how the relationship with that medicine in the native cultures, we always talk about, grandmother medicine or grandfather medicine, or, Santos Niños. So there's a relationship. And so that's the spirit of the medicine. And that's really, really important. So I've seen over the last 20 some years, just this almost like a fad, almost like, oh, I've done my ayahuasca journey, or I've done this, or I've done that. Almost like you're checking a box.
Exactly. That's
And
what I'm talking about.
That to me is where the danger happens, where people will have experience. They can't actually align with that experience, and it becomes very dangerous. And so I recommend people to work with medicine people that are truly here, that have been initiated with these plant medicines to help humanity. And it's not, this business of, doing something. It's absolutely aligning with the grandmother within yourself, or grandfather within yourself. It's nothing outside of you. So for me, it's a wake up to the remembrance of who we are.
Remembrance of who we are. Icasiana, this has been an amazing conversation. I feel like that we could just talk about this all day, but for the
Indeed.
but for the respect of time to our listeners,
yes, of course,
I'm just going to call there. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really love our conversation, and I've learned a lot. And so here we go. And that is all for this episode of Audible River. And to you who are listening, I would love to know your thoughts about our podcast. So please feel free to email me at audibleriverpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.